Okay, hi guys. So we just talked about middlewares. Keep all of that information in your brain because some of it will apply to validation. If you have already followed along with CJ's video and you're like, I have validations down, you do not have to be in here. I'm not going super in depth. It's not going to be an advanced topic. This is like how to write validations. So if you feel confident that you can do them on your own based on the video, go do something else. It's a better use of your time. Cool. So we are going to cover 3 objectives today, these guys that I've highlighted. We are going to validate the presence of the field. So we're going to make sure that what we want exists. We're not just getting back an empty string or an empty field. The user didn't type in nothing and hit enter. We are going to validate the format of the field with the regex. So we are going to make sure that we are getting back what we want. So if a user needed to give us an email, that they actually gave us an email. And then we are going to respond to the valid result. We don't want to be letting the server hang just because they typed in letters instead of numbers at the end of their URL. We want to say, hey, that's not a valid ID. Right? So what I have here are some just basic routes. We are getting everything. We've got users. We are getting one user by ID, and then we can also post. We're not going to we'll use this one too. We've got a post route. So to see these, we can get everything, and this is what we're going to be using. I want to real quickly say, okay, why validate? Why do we care? Besides just getting what we want in. I have taken this definition directly from Learn, so if you read this in Learn, then you're good to go. Basically, we want to make sure that nobody input something that's going to harm our database or our code. We want to make sure that we're getting information that's going to be useful in the database that we can actually query and use. Otherwise, what's the point of storing it, right? Caroline?
You say harm the database, so in the example of like validating the format of a field, you're saying like someone did something, you have an integer or column, they letters. Can you not like let the database fail?
Yeah, that's part of it.
Like you set the type of the column already to be not like an integer not.
We would want to let the user know in some way that they did something wrong, right? So this is a way for us to do that. We can immediately be like, show a page that says, hey, you input that wrong or something, right?
So
you can.
The database did it like the user failed, it doesn't.
They might not know that they did something wrong. And on the flip side, you can also do this on the front of the app. So in the actual form, you would want to do that as well. Say, oh, this is not valid in the form before the user submitted something. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Cool. That's all well and good. Really why I inputted in this last one exactly what we don't want to happen. The name is just empty spaces. That's not useful to me. The email is not actually the email. Also not useful to me. I want to get information from the user that I can actually use so that they can actually use the app. And so this is what we're trying to prevent. Okay, so let's check it out. First off, we are going to need some functions to handle checking if we're getting the right information. So you've probably seen this one in the videos. We're just going to validate that our user is giving us the correct information. So we're going to write a function. This is just straight up logic. We're going to pass in the user object. We're going to declare these variables that will be true or false so that we can return true or false as to whether the user has given us the information we need. So we'll start with the user has a name. And first off, our objective was validate a presence of a field. So we want to make sure they actually sent something in. Type of, and then user.name. So what we are getting from the user, their name, needs to be a string. And it also needs to not equal an empty string. Let's see. Trim is going to take off all the extra spaces. So we don't want that to equal an empty string, okay? So if we were to log this and pass in a user.name and it was a string and it wasn't an empty string, it would resolve to true and our user could be put into the database. Okay? We also have other things we are getting from the user based on how I made my database. We were getting an email, and we want to make sure that it's actually an email. So, to start off, has email. And we are going to make sure that that is also a string. Oops. Okay, cool. It's a string. But how do we know that it's actually an email? You would want to do a more advanced version of this than what I'm about to do. But this will give you an idea. I'm just going to make sure that there's an @ symbol. That's all for now. You can make it more in depth later, and I'm going to use a regex to do this. I can give you guys a link to regexer if you've never played with it. It's very fun to learn how to select certain things. So we also want to make sure that, let's see, user.email. We're going to match the regex, which is, I think the way, let's see, @ there we go. Yeah, so I've selected @ symbol. I want to make sure that that exists, and match returns null if it doesn't exist, so we want to make sure that that doesn't equal null. So if a user email is a string and it has an @ symbol in it, that will return true, and our user can be put into the database. And then finally, we want to check if they have an ice cream ID, because if you'll look back here, they all have an ice cream ID. That relates to an ice cream table, similar to what I did earlier in the week or last week with you guys. So for this one, has ice cream. We're just going to make sure that this one is not a number. Okay, so it is nan user ice cream ID. So when the user submits that they've selected chocolate chip cookie dough, which is ID number 3, it goes in there and it says, okay, this is a number. We're good to go. That is true. And we can input that into the database. So I've just done logic right here, but we need to put it into our route. And to do this one, we're going to use it not in the get or the get by ID. We want to actually do it in the post because it's what the user is sending to us. So all we really need to do is check out our post, and I'm going to rewrite this. So router.post, and we're going to the same route, and I am still passing in rec, res, and next, but this time I am going to give an if statement. Okay, so if valid user, and then I pass it in rec.body. So if this is true, then go ahead and do the stuff. Queries.create rec.body, and then, oh, thank you, good catch. And then actually show our users. Well, the user that we just created. So in that if statement, if valid user is true, we get to do the stuff. If not, we are going to, oops, that's the wrong spot to put that. We are going to use what you guys just learned about next. We're going to create a new error, and we're going to let them know that it was wrong, because they should know that it wasn't a valid user. Otherwise, they might assume they did everything right. This time, if we make a post request, if we make a post request, we're not going to end up with this, because it can't be an empty string. It has to have an @ sign. It has to be a number, which they passed that already. So let me change this to post real quick. I need that. Cool. So this time, if I put in nothing and I don't give it an @ sign, it should tell us invalid user, ideally. Oh, maybe I'm not on. Oh, do I?
Well, in the
Oh.
There's an extra curly there.
Right there.
And then your validation.
Yes.
The not equals
Oh.
needs to go outside the parentheses. Oh yeah, and
I have to return, but which?
not equals null should go outside the parentheses.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Perfect. Good catch. I didn't return anything in here. We need to return has name and has email. Otherwise, it's not really doing anything, right? And has ice cream. Hooray! Maybe it will work now. Cool. We'll try to send that. Let's make sure everything's running. Did anybody else catch anything else? Oh, there we go. Oh no, it worked. We didn't want that. What's going on? Help me debug, friends.
Probably because you have
Oh.
2 different functions.
Thank you. Fed caught it. I forgot to comment out the old post, so it was still doing the old one because that was on top. Killed it.
Middlewares, right? Top down.
Woo, top down. We got it. Okay, cool. This time, it's not going to work, right? We don't want it to work. Yay! So, invalid user. Hooray. So, I would love for you guys to take a couple of minutes and don't write out, you don't need to write one as like big as this. Just validate one thing in an app that you've built. Maybe check that something is actually a number that they're giving. Maybe check that something is actually a string. Try this out. And make sure that it's giving you what you want in Postman. So invalid user or invalid not a number or something like that.
Other thing you check for is like if it's a certain length. So
Yes.
make sure it's like greater than length 5 or less than length 20.
So your goal is these top 2 objectives. You're going to validate the presence of a field, making sure that it actually exists. You're going to validate that it's what you want using a regex. Yes?
So Cass, this kind of all validation is for the developer, it's not for the user, right?
I mean,
Because-
it helps the user.
Sure, but I mean, if I want to build an app that based on your API, then I have to build the validation in the client side.
Yes,
And this is for the developer once
Yes.
you build.
exactly. Yeah, the user would only see the client-side stuff. But if you didn't put that in for some reason.
Yeah, sure.
Correct. Oops. So find an old app that you've got, maybe the one you were just working on. Validate something in the post request. And remember, I'm using a conditional in there. Take one more minute, because a lot of you already have them from following along with the video. If you don't finish it, that's okay, as long as you've got the right idea and you can finish it in a little bit. Yes?
So, in terms of validation, what's the difference between this validation what we did and doing another one next?
Yeah, so I'll do one
Okay.
Okay, wrap up with your typing. Maybe make a note of what you need to do if you have not yet finished. Cool. We're going to now do one. Fahad just asked, can we use one that has next in it? And it's a perfect segue because we are going to use one that is like a middleware. So this was also in the video series. So you can bring up that code if you want to reference it. The idea here is that a user types into their URL that, oh, well, I'm user, or I want to see sticker number 2, for example. In this case, it's the person, the user number 2. A user wouldn't be searching users, but like this. But let's say they wanted this and they typed in 2 and oh yay, I got what I want. But what if they made a typo and they typed a letter instead? Oh, now we're here, the app has crashed, it's just gonna sit here forever, the user doesn't know what happened, they blame it on me, and now I'm getting hate mail, right? So we want to avoid that, and by doing that, we make a valid ID function. We make sure that we are getting that in the URL, they are giving us the right ID. So the same idea applies. We are going to check if we are getting the right ID. We're going to pass in rec, res, and next, because this is going to be like our middleware like validation. So we want to check if the ID is not a number. So if it is a number, rec.params.id, and it's rec.params.id because we're getting it from that URL, right? So if that is not a number, then, or if that is not a number, if that is a number, then we want to return, go on, do your stuff. It's fine. Continue on with your life. So that's where we use next. So it passes on to the next. Yay. If not, then we want to go to an error. And it's going to be the new error, invalid ID. And this one is the one that jumps directly to your error handler, correct? Yes. Oh yeah, you don't need an else. You're correct.
So could you, instead of doing your turn next, if you didn't do that and you put that in an else statement like you had, that would also work?
I don't think so.
No.
No, I was just doing that out of habit.
I was just wondering.
No, this is how it should be written. Yeah. Cool. So this time, if a user goes in here and is like, oh, I want number 2, they get it, yay, but let's try H or G or something, because why not? Oh, did I not save it? Oh, do you remember? I missed something. Very important part. Anybody? Jason. Yes, I didn't call it. Hooray. Yes. Yeah, so this is kind of an important thing to know. We're going to go to the one that is for ID. And what we're going to do is we are going to keep this basically the same. I think maybe I didn't change it from before, but we need to pass in that function. So is valid ID. And it hangs out right there as a parameter. Yes?
So why don't you invoke that?
I don't know. This is...
Yeah, so I mean, the one thing I didn't show is in a middleware function, you can pass in multiple functions, and it will call all of those functions successively when a request comes in. So we're not invoking it because we're saying for every request that comes into the app, first call that middleware, and it'll do what it needs to do, and if it calls next, then this route handler will be called. But you can actually have as many of those in that function call as you want. You can do isValidID, has name, like you could just put a bunch of functions right there, each of those being middlewares, and they'll all get called in order.
If you did invoke it, would it make a difference?
What's that?
If you did invoke it, would it change anything?
Absolutely, because if you invoke that, scroll up to isValidID. What does isValidID return?
Oh, it would just be a loop.
Well, it wouldn't be a loop. So if you invoke this function, first we probably get the error that rec.param, well, rec is not an object, because if we invoke it with no parameters, we're not passing in rec, res, and next, right? So you get the error like rec.params is, well, params is not an object, rec is not an
But
object.
if you passed it those parameters, then it would just make a loop, right? So it would like go to that.
Sure, but how would you pass in those parameters? Where do you have access to those parameters?
You would have to, I guess, invoke it inside that other thing.
Yeah, but best practice, let Express handle that, right? Just say, hey Express, this is a middleware, call
Here
it
it
rec,
is.
res, and next when you're ready.
Is it filling the parameters? Is Express doing that? By calling the function, like sticking the res, and next, and then forth?
Go ahead.
So if I have an array of validation functions,
Mm.
is it possible to pass the array instead of saying isValidID, I would just send an array?
I've never tried it. I don't know.
You can try it, like, if you scroll up to your, validating the user function, this is a very simple validation. Let me get closer to the microphone. It's a very simple validation. It's just returning true or false if the thing is valid. but we're kind of like losing information in here, right? We don't know, was the name invalid, was the email invalid, which ones were invalid. So you could write a function that like pushes error messages into an array or something, and then sends back that array of messages. If you want to have multiple middlewares, you would just put them as separate parameters in the request handler.
Yeah.
Um,
What if it's an array
an array of what?
of the validation function?
You would handle that in the validation itself. So you could do something like map over all the validation functions, invoke each one. If it has an error, push it into something, and then ultimately return true or false. But that's all just going to be JavaScript in your validation function.
Steven?
How would you validate for an update, I guess? If they don't,
For an
maybe like
for a what? Sorry.
an update.
Ooh.
It's the same way. What I did in the video though is I treated an update and a creation as the exact same thing. So whenever you're updating, you have to pass in all of the parameters. You could have custom logic that says, okay, when you're updating, maybe they don't have to have all the parameters, but if they do have those properties that are defined in that table, let's validate those. But again, you can just have custom logic here. So instead of valid user, you could say like valid update, and instead of making sure that all of the properties are present, it would instead make sure that, okay, if that property is on there, does it match the specific validation?
Caroline?
I have two questions. One is this where you would validate for a post, I guess? So say you have a unique constraint on one of your columns, like you can't have the same email twice. Is this where you do that to make sure that they're not, like the email doesn't already exist?
You'd probably do that in your query. Because your query could first say, okay, give me all users that have this ID. If I get back a result, send an error. If I don't get back a result, then
Do the thing.
But that would be in your query spot.
So you would do a get, even though it's a post, you would do like a get first.
But it wouldn't be a get, it would just be a query inside. I'm talking about.
Yeah, so like
Um,
in here,
Yeah.
you'd do the logic in one of these.
So it would probably be like in that create function, before inserting the user, you would say, command person where email is user.email. If you get back something, then return nothing. Otherwise, return that insert statement.
And then my other question is, why are you treating the way you call the validation functions for getting versus posting so differently? Like,
Oh.
why is posting, you do like the if,
Yeah.
and then the other one you use it as like an additional middleware?
I think, can you do it either way? It's kind of just up to
Yes.
personal preference. Yeah.
And let's make that an exercise for the reader. So if you scroll down,
Which,
yeah, that one right there. You could turn this into a middleware.
totally.
Or not, the one that Elliot
Yes,
used.
this one.
Keep scrolling.
Wait, here we go.
Post request.
Thank you.
Yes.
There we go.
You could turn that into a middleware. Think about how you would do that. You don't have to now, but
Cool. So let's double check that we have done what we set out to do. We double checked that the user has given us something, that we are getting something when we are trying to post something into our database. We are making sure that it is what we want. This is the second objective. And then we're responding with a valid result. So they're either going to get back, like in the example of the users, they're getting back what they just put in, or we are getting back, hey, that's not that's not cool. That's an invalid user. Instead of something just a 404 that doesn't tell us anything, or a spinning server. So if you've not already tried out one of the middleware versions of a validation, I suggest that you try that out now, especially since you just had the middleware lesson, and refer back to this video and the videos that CJ posted for any syntax information. Cool? Cool. Thank you guys.